But the fact of the matter is that we're all trying to live up to something. We're
Mm.
trying to measure, we're measuring ourselves. And I think that's a critical mistake. And boy, when I say contentment in the
Mm-hmm.
book, I'm referring to operating within your abilities.
Mm. Mm. There it is.
People look at contentment as a negative. They go in and say, but that takes discipline. That takes the ability to understand where I am.
Hey, welcome back for another episode of the Oasis Space. I am Patrice Grimes, also known as the Peace Creator, and I just want to say thank you again for joining me here on the Oasis Space. For my fellow peace pursuits that are regulars in this community, I am happy to have you all a part of this journey with me, as I always say. And if this is your first time listening in, I want to welcome you even more. So as you've already heard me indicate, our community is called Peace Pursuits. And here in the Oasis Space, we believe the definition of peace is an acronym for what I've coined to mean being able to pivot even as chaos ensues. I've said it before, I say it again. The reality of it is that conflict and chaos will inevitably disrupt our lives at some point. And I believe it's the way in that you're able to pivot that ultimately changes the trajectory of your life. You know, I do believe that in order to transform conflict to peace, particularly in our professions and personal relationships, we must be equipped with alternative perspectives that empower us to embrace our authentic identity. And that is exactly, of course, what we intend to do again today with this episode. I have my friend here, Mr. Juan Lee, that is going to be speaking to us as it relates to personal relationships with ourselves and how that dictates our spending habits. You know, I don't know about y'all, but when I got a little jingle in my pocket, a little rustle of the dollar bills, y'all, I'm talking about birds chirp a little more, the sky looks a little bluer, the sun seems to shine a little brighter, right? You just feel a little bit different when you got some coins, all right? And it's not to say that money is everything. Obviously, we don't subscribe to that here. But I do believe that it is the vehicle that gets you to where you need to go. Having money provides resources to help you obtain certain life goals and achievements and some of the things that you may want to purchase or the dreams that you have for yourself. So to act like it is not important at all would really be remiss of us and irresponsible almost. And so again, as I talk about, you know, how we have these personal relationships, particularly with ourselves today, we're going to dive into, again, how those personal relationships affect our decision makings as it relates to our financial literacy and money management skills. So as a part of, again, this series of proactively pursuing peace, I think there are certainly ways that we can be proactive in our finances, proactive in our relationship with ourselves that help us to make better decisions as it relates to our finances. And that's exactly what Juan Lee is going to talk to us about today. So I am going to share with you a little bit about Juan before we get into the episode. And just for starters, Juan is a transformational speaker, author, and teacher on the powerful principle of love. As a part of some of his many career experiences, Juan Lee was a real estate investor for over 10 years. He was a commercial and residential financial consultant for 6 years, where he saw the lack of financial education amongst people of color. He also taught mortgage financing. Currently, Juan is the founder and executive director of Clear Journey, which is a nonprofit that teaches teens and young adults the attitudes for success in financial management. The ultimate goal of Clear Journey is to provide young people a clear direction in life So there you have it. That's a little bit about Juan. But of course, we're going to get into more details with this episode. Again, I think it's a really good one, and I know you're going to find some value in it. So without further ado, welcome to the Oasis Space with Mr. Juan Lee. All right. We are back for another episode in the Oasis Space, and I am ecstatic to have this special guest with me today, Mr. Juan Lee. Juan comes here with a wealth of knowledge, and as I mentioned earlier, in his program, what we are going to be talking about today is how to be proactive and our money management skills. I know a lot of you all are parents that listen to this podcast, and, unfortunately, some of us are in those scenarios where we are trying to navigate various parts of our life so suitable to what Juan's program is, navigating life. But part of that is the money piece. And I believe that as we transform our conflict into peace, and particularly in money management, it all relates to personal relationships with ourselves as well. And that's part of what we discuss here at the Oasis Space: relationships with ourselves, relationships with others, and relationships with our children, to name a few, right? And so when I think about us and how some of us have grown up and maybe not had the best financial management skills, I think about how it likely started when we were children. And so that's the conversation I want to have with Mr. Juan Lee today that I think is going to be so awesome and amazing. So Juan, thank you so much. Welcome to the Oasis Space and our community of peace pursuits.
Thank you for having me, Patrice. I really appreciate it.
Of course. So Juan, let's get into it. I don't want to waste any time because I know this topic, a lot of people love talking about money, how to get some, how to fix theirs, whatever it is. And we know that's not the totality of life, right? There is a number of things, but money and how to manage money is a good factor, but we will be lying here if we said it's not, right? So when I think about that in the terms of what you do, navigating the life program, just tell us a little bit about the program, how you got to this, what made you want to create this program, and let's just dive in there.
Okay. I tell you, this is the big picture, and I'm going to start at the top then.
Okay.
Basically, it came out of a book that I wrote last year. It's called Love Made Simple. It's the guide to inner peace, contentment, and success.
Wow.
And as a result of that, I had went through the process of developing it, and I really became very interested in the fact that love is the action that we all are after in our lives.
Yeah.
It's the key to life. It's that action. And I came up with the practical application of love is what was the thing that preceded the program. And it was what motivated the program. It's basically the steps, the directions based on the title, the subtitle of the book, giving you the peace, the contentment, and success. And so how do we do that practically? Using love.
Yeah.
And so I came up with how to navigate life program. And so it's from there, it has modules in it. And what we're going to be talking about today is the fifth step of the module. And I'll go down through the modules for you. So you'll have it's in a succession. And it's basically the first one. It talks about life, explaining and defining that big question that we all want to know about. What about life? What is it about life? What is this thing? And then it goes into personal development. Basically, my part in life.
Yeah.
And then we talk about decision making and problem solving. These things are going to be choices that we're going to make that are going to be long lasting and life changing. And then we go from there to relationships. Can't avoid them.
Right.
Then we go to relationships, good or bad, and how they will affect your life. And then we come up to where we're going to talk about today, and it's money management. And the subtitle for that is, just as you said, life and money. You can't get around it.
Man, oh man, that is so good. Now I'm already thinking, Juan, I wish we had multiple hours to talk because listen, all these modules sound amazing and I know they're all connected, right? And when we talk about like the 5 steps that you went through, like you said, they go into session, but they're all so intertwined, connected so well together. And like you said, for the sake of this conversation, we're talking about the money management piece, life and money, right? And so, but even as you're talking, I'm thinking about what we've already shared, right? How money management and life and money still connects to the relationships, which is the step before. It connects with your good and or bad relationships, and it sets us up for relationships of whether the relationship we have with ourselves or with our parents that taught us these money management skills. It's all going to affect how we likely handle our money and life moving forward, right?
That preparation that you're going to have when you're experienced, because see, there's where your goals are going to be actualized. You're going to need some money. If there ain't no goals and dreams that are going to be out here without no finance.
Right.
And so if you don't understand, you can have, everybody got dreams and aspirations, but if we're not prepared for them, we've got to do the preparation. And so there you go.
Wow. So you said we have to do the preparation. So is that something of what you talk about specifically in the life and money module?
Oh, absolutely. We talk about goal setting. We talk about decision making. All of this. This is where you get all of this other stuff, all of those other modules. They come together right there because your relationships determine how you make decisions. How the way you self-develop, what your self-development has been, is based on how you make decisions. It's going to be whether or not you're going to decide to choose to set a particular goal or not. Then you're going to prepare to reach. And then have the discipline necessary to pursue it without anybody on your back telling you that you need to. You've got to be self-motivated to accomplish this because mom and daddy ain't there no more.
Right, exactly.
They ain't gonna tell you what to do with your money.
Right, exactly.
And you've got to understand that it's gonna be your money. You know, everybody ain't gonna have somebody to fund them.
Right.
Okay.
We don't have the trust funds, you know.
I mean, so unless you're gonna build it, it ain't there. I mean, that's our community.
Yes.
We're in this area right now, but we're talking about generational wealth. Somebody got to build it.
There you go, right? And so when you say that, right, someone has to build it, and sometimes it isn't our levels. Sometimes we don't have we're talking about building generational wealth now, but the generation may very well be starting with you. And I've seen that in a lot of spaces where the generational wealth conversations are just now starting in this decade or maybe a decade right before. And so it's almost like people are trying to play catch up, for lack of better words, or trying to restructure things to rebuild what was broken previously. And so I want us to really talk about that now. I know how you had a broader journey with the entire navigating, how to navigate life program, but particularly as it pertains to the finance pieces we're talking about, just how to take those proactive measures. What led you to feel like, hey, I need to include this piece in the module? Like, everybody, I feel like, has some story connected to those things. And is it anything in particular that made you realize I need to include money management in how to navigate life because that's something that is vitally important? Or is it something that you specifically experienced yourself that made you think this is important to include?
I'll tell you, a part of my journey was basically I was a financial consultant. And this was back in the mid 2000s during the time of the bust. Of the everything. And I saw how our communities were being, they were being, for lack of a better word, they were being played hard. There were systems and programs that were allowed to be in place that they were being driven by their emotions and things that they were told that they could do that had no logic to them at all.
Wow.
Absolutely no logic. And that really goes back. I mean, we could dig into this forever because the programs that they were using to entice people to buy homes were things that just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
It was like programs that were interest only programs. Meaning, in other words, that you are never paying on the principal.
Right.
And that means that you're renting with no benefits.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And that would mean that you don't understand ownership.
Mm-hmm.
And they were jumping for these programs because guess what? It stemmed into the point that they didn't understand what they didn't understand. They didn't know, or I'm not going to say we didn't know that we were being played. And the fact of the matter is that there are people that are still suffering from those experiences.
Yeah.
Because when you jack your credit, you don't fix it overnight. And then these people out here telling them about they can fix your credit overnight. Ain't no such thing.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Ain't no such thing.
That's so true.
You can trash your credit in a second in one choice, but you can't repair it with the same one choice. It takes a collection of choices. That's why when we were talking about, and I don't want to get there, we were talking about problem solving decisions. These are those choices that have long lasting effects.
Right.
In your financial life. Ultimately, this is where those choices and the connection here is
right. It's synonymous. They all go succinctly together, to your point. And that's kind of what I want to get into when we talk about, these poor decisions that have maybe historically been made, or even maybe you think you're going about the right way, but you've been actually given inappropriate or incorrect information, right? And again, I think this can be where it can be passed down poor information, or it can just be information that we think we're setting a new precedent. We think we're going to the right guide. And unfortunately, we're given maybe the wrong information in this case that you were speaking of. But how do you feel like when you tapped a little bit on the behaviors, how have you seen that behaviors or emotions can play into maybe just maxing out the credit cards, or how do you connect those two together?
There are many parts to this, but the fact of the matter is that we're all trying to live up to something. We're trying to measure. We're measuring ourselves, and I think that's a critical mistake. And boy, when I say contentment in the book, I'm referring to operating within your abilities.
There it is.
People look at contentment as a negative. They go in and say, but that takes discipline. That takes the ability to understand where I am.
Yeah.
Then again, boy, you got me running all over the program here. that goes back into developing yourself to the point where you can stay within those abilities and not let somebody draw you out beyond somebody trying to compare you to somebody that you are not.
Right. And even when you talk, Juan, and I hear you talking about, contentment being able to operate within your own abilities, and that takes discipline. I have found that the greatest form, because tying it together with how you developed your journey for love and the book, that how that all ties in, I have found that discipline is actually one of the highest forms of self-love, the highest. And nobody really likes to talk about that, but it's having the ability, like you say, to operate within your own ability. And it doesn't mean that you should not push yourself to be greater, right? It is
And
more
that's the part,
knowing, right? It's knowing what you actually capable of so that you can show up better and master yourself better and better and better. But trying to push yourself outside of limits that do not serve you, or that because you're trying to put on for someone else, that's when you realize the discontentment settles in, right? And that's what I'm tracking from you. That's what I'm getting.
you are absolutely right, because and that was the point that I was trying to get to. And it's not saying that you're not pursuing your potential, that you are operating in the place and space that you are today so that you can maintain that peace that you referred to. That's ultimately what we're trying to do, is to maintain that peace in
Right.
any situation and circumstance. But we find ourselves, when we're not in that place of peace, is outside of our own boundaries.
See,
We've stepped outside of our boundaries.
yeah, that's so good, Juan, because like you say, I mean, this is likely, and again, we in this space, we talk about how to transform conflict to peace in these various areas of our lives and our professions and personal relationships. And so when you say this, all of those things are, like you say, they kind of run synonymously together, because when we think of peace, we think of contentment, we think of all of those things, and how likely we're conflicted because the bank account shows $3 in the account. So we know we can't afford it, but I've got to have this, because if I don't have this, what will people think of me? How will people look at me? How will people judge me? Even to the point of maybe us sending our children to school. If I don't put them in this type of outfit, will people think that we're poor? Will people think that we don't have it together? Will people think that I'm not a good mother? I'm not a good father. I'm not a good provider, right? And we go through all these behaviors that you're talking about that then causes us to do the extra spending, to take on those emotional spending habits. That is so, oh my God, that's so good, Juan. That's so good.
I'm gonna digress a little bit because all of those pressures that you just demonstrated is because we don't understand what life is all about. We allow those pressures to influence us to push us outside of our own self-influenced boundaries, because we don't understand the purpose of life. We've been searching for that question, and I hate to take us back out of here, but there is where those answers is in that first module.
Yeah.
And understanding what life is all about. If we've determined that life is about pleasing someone else, it's about living up to someone else's standard. And when we really understand that life is really about selflessness, and that's where it makes this thing work. See, love is the system, and I don't want to go into it, but the fact of the matter is that those questions, those things that cause you to step outside of your boundaries, is in that first module. Is in that module where you understand life. And then that you don't have to compare yourself to anyone else. I won't interject my personal story, but that was my experience in life as I was growing up. I have a learning disability. Okay. And going through school, I was compared to my peers. I have an undiagnosed learning disability until I'm 37 years old.
Wow.
So then, so what happens? And I'm growing up, and I'm being pegged as everything but what my real issue is, because I'm being compared.
Right.
Instead of trying to find out who I am and what my issue is, they put me in special education, and that was the way I went through.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, it wasn't until I was 18, 19 years old was I able to understand that I was unique.
Yeah.
Just the way I am.
Right.
And uniqueness is not a downside. It's not a negative. It's for me to now understand what I have how to use what I have and then maximize what I have.
Juan, you about to get into a whole nother episode.
Call me back. Call me back. Call me back.
So even like when you talk about that, right, and that pivotal moment in your life, being having an undiagnosed learning disability, you're trying to navigate through life, figure things out yourself, right? And do you feel that had any influence over the decisions you made to even get into to be a financial consultant, because you saw some of these behaviors showing up in other people? Or what did that look like? I guess what even made you want to become a financial consultant? I know you have real estate investor background knowledge as well. I guess I want to know what brought you to that place and then even pivoted you into, because you have a young adult program as well, for teens and young adults. So what brought you there?
See, now that's interesting because all of this works together.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so interesting. So I'm going to go, man, finances was something that I could do. Numbers was something that I was good with. Mm-hmm. Okay. And give me and understand this now. I got into to finances and probably I was about 33. Mm-hmm. Now this is still before I've been diagnosed. 33. So again, I've been navigating this life, this basic ghost in my life.
Yeah.
I have this undiagnosed learning disability, making learning extremely difficult, but numbers I've always been good with.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to become a part of a mortgage broker's business, became a loan officer. Mm-hmm. I began to see those experiences, do those, prepare, consult with people, understand that what challenges it was and how things work. And I understand that no matter what my life was going to ultimately be, I had to understand this industry. I needed to understand money. Mm-hmm. Okay? Irrespective of whatever else was going on or I needed to grasp money.
Yeah.
Now, up to this point, I had always been very frugal with money. Mm-hmm. Because it was like, if I got it, I got to keep it as long as I can because I don't know if I'm going to get any more.
Right.
I don't know how I'm going to get any more. But the fact of the matter is that it was that through that experience and learning what people did not understand about money, about finances, about the mortgage industry, especially at the time where I'm talking about. This was pre the bubble. Yeah. But the fact of the matter was that those programs were coming and they were giving us those programs to provide to people. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I've learned enough to know that ain't good.
Yeah.
And yet they were still promoting them because they were bankers. I mean, they were money makers. Money makers. Okay? You don't understand what they were doing to the people. These big corporations, these big banks were making boatloads of money.
Right.
And they were putting in, and I don't know if you realize it, but they were putting people in bad programs because there was no way that these programs was going to be able to sustain them. They could not sustain them.
So then I think a lot of them were even being evicted from places, right? Because they weren't able to sustain and they never owned the home.
Oh, it was totally. So my point being is that my experiences was seeing people that were losing their aspirations, their dreams, their goals, and the thing about it is that they didn't know that they was grasping at straw.
Yeah.
I mean, we can go so far with this because it was just a bad time for our communities. Right. And they're still trying to recover from it. Here it is almost 15 years later.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're still trying to recover from
it. And that's a good point though, right? Because like I say, when we talk about even just being proactive to develop better relationships with our finances, these are people that, like you say, thought they were taking the right steps, had the right people that were informing them, but unfortunately it wasn't. So Can you give us a few steps or signs that can help a person? Like, what are some steps that someone can take to have a better relationship with finances? And or if there's not specific steps, if there are maybe signs to look for when it is not, like when you are not in alignment with your finance appropriately, if it's a program that's not in alignment, something like that.
Here is the first thing, and this is an attitude thing, and this is basically attitude. Live within your means. Do not spend money that you do not have.
Yeah.
Okay? Do not spend money that you do not have. I'll give you an case. I use my credit card. I don't even use cash anymore. I use credit card for everything. Everything. Very rarely do you catch me with $1 in my pocket.
Yeah.
Okay? But I've never spent $1 that I don't have.
Yeah. It's making the credit
now,
card.
Just and you get all the benefits and stuff from the credit card, and they give you all the perks and stuff. I mean, I remember before McDonald's used to take credit cards. I drive by because I ain't got no money. I mean, and there's a McDonald's and they be hungry as I want to be, and I ain't got no money. And McDonald's realized that they wanted to spend some money. They need to make a new credit card.
Right.
So they started taking credit cards. And that was when I was like, I ain't never spent. Look, I know McDonald's is loving this, but if I can buy it in McDonald's, I'm good.
Right.
but no, it was a sign of the times changing. And yet I've fully fallen into it long before that because I didn't spend money I didn't have. And this is something that's within your ability.
Right.
Is to
first thing, spending money outside of your means. That's rule number one.
Yeah, I mean, just don't. I mean, that's a stop. That's a precautionary thing. That's not It's just saying to you, I'm not digging any hole.
Right.
See, because the worst thing that happens is that we start digging holes before we realize that we done dug the hole. And then you realize that it's harder to get out of the hole than it is to get in the hole.
Yep.
See, so if we want to prevent the hole, stay within. Don't spend money that you don't have. Right. When the bill comes, pay the bill. If you can't pay the bill off every month, when it comes, you've spent too much.
Yep.
Okay. Very simple. If you can't pay the whole bill off, you spent too much. Because then you're getting into stuff that you really don't want to get into then. Right. It's called interest.
Right. And of course, it makes it way longer to pay it off at that point.
Well, it's just understanding the fact. It's just understanding this information here is that it's harder to get out of a hole than it is to get in it.
Right. So with that one, I know you have also, it looks like you have branched off into a nonprofit called Clear Journey that helps, that really essentially teaches teens and young adults the attitudes for success and financial management. So at some point you realize, not only do I need to educate adults about this, but let's start at the teen and the young adult level. Is that something you saw throughout with your clients, or that you realized, hey, we need to start this earlier, or what possessed you to start the nonprofit with Clear Journey?
It basically had to do with giving young adults a direction so that they can start, teens and young adults, so that they can prevent those holes that we just got through talking about. And it's based on knowledge.
Yeah.
You've got to have the knowledge to know how to navigate. That ain't new. The bankers are making a mint off of people who do not understand interest. I mean, look, we need the system of banking.
Yeah.
But you understand, when you put your money in a bank, you're going to get 1%.
Right.
But when you borrow money from the bank, they're going to charge you 18%.
Right.
Think about that.
Yeah.
There's that 17% there that they're getting from your money, and you can't even, that's a whole nother conversation. But the
Yeah.
fact of the matter is that you're paying to borrow your money at
Right.
that point.
Right. Right. And like you said, debt ain't new. It's not new. It's not a new concept. It's not some new theory. But I imagine the teens and the young adults that are coming to you, it is something that they have realized they either have an interest in, they want to know how to better manage their money, or maybe, God forbid, I mean, we have stories of where parents maybe we got cars in our name at 3 years old, right? We hear that in our community sometimes, of having credit before we even knew what credit is. So I imagine the young teens and young adults that are coming to your program fall probably within these three categories of either just having an interest in finance, to maybe they particularly want to know about finance, or they have been in a situation where maybe they have seen finances mismanaged in their own home, which increases their idea to, well, how do I be better? How do I change the trajectory of life based on what I got now and what I've seen? Would that be accurate based on the people that come to your program?
Yeah, but more so, I'm wanting to connect with schools, recreation facilities, so that if they don't know about it, that we can introduce them to it. See, it's about introducing them. They don't necessarily have to have this. Oh, I want to know. No, I want to introduce it to them, because if they don't know, they don't know.
Yeah.
That they don't know.
Right. That's true.
And what I want to do is introduce them to the concepts so that they can begin. Look, if you got $1 in your hand, it's easy to just not understand what that dollar is.
Right.
See, the dollar, the way you use that dollar has to do with of how you make your decision. It's an indicator of your decision making.
Yeah.
Okay. And even as a child, we don't learn how to be responsible for what we have. And guess what? We give them $10 and we go, okay, they get $10.
Right.
We don't make the children accountable.
Right. Right.
What was your process of using that money? How did you think about using that $10? How did you go? What was the process that you saw?
Right.
And a lot of times we find out that we spend our money because we see.
Right. So it's just kind of like this sporadic, spontaneous spending, instead of really going through a decision process of, is this a necessity? Is this something that maybe even has longevity to it or whatever, when you're going through these processes, right?
We talk about all of those because it's all about your choices.
Yeah.
It's about choices. And you have to understand what money is. Money is merely just an exchange of your choices. It's an exchange for your choices. You're going to give someone your money to gain your choices, to get your choices. And it's you don't understand. Your money will tell you so much about you, how you spend your money. Go ahead. I won't go no.
I was just saying, that's so true. That's so true. But go ahead. What were you about to say?
I was getting ready to make an example of that. I was in law enforcement for 10 years. And you can check your credit card and find a person.
Say that again?
Your credit card will direct law enforcement right to you.
Oh, yeah, by knowing where you made the purchases and things like that. Yeah.
What I'm saying is that it's a track on you. Understand this. Understand what money is, especially when you're with digital money.
Right.
Okay? Understand this. We're becoming more of a digital society, more and more. And it's a direct trail to where you go, what you do, who you do it with. It just denotes your choices.
Yeah.
and we are not figuring that out, money and life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a direct correlation. It will tell on you, good or bad.
That's so true. So I think one of the last questions that I probably have, Juan, with this, right? Because you've given so much good information and how all of these things, in terms of navigating life, all intersect and intertwine together. I guess to kind of wrap it up some, as we talk about just proactively being aware of our spending habits or finances, things like that, in order to embody peace within our finances. What can people do to be proactive in their peace with finances? So like we can take the $10 example, right? When we have something as simple as $10, what are the first steps they need to take when you're talking about the decision-making process to determine how to spend, save, whatever, right? Like what are, I guess, the main steps you go through as decision-making processing as it relates to finances when we talk about this whole peace thing?
The very first thing that you need to do, and I know this is going to be, I'm gonna just keep it here right to find. You have to set goals. You have to set yourself some goals.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's difficult to say or to do, but you have got to identify what it is that you want.
Yeah.
What you want to be identified with, and then remember that it takes finances. See, we can't get around finances in this life. You can't get around. I mean, we're not bartering anymore, but the fact that the concepts are still the same.
Yeah.
You know, we do not set goals. And it is essential to being able to navigate this because all finances is a tool so that you can reach your goals.
Right.
If you don't know what those goals are, you are spending money just at whim.
Right.
You're just spending it. And this is how advertisings get you. Because you're going to open your eyes, you're going to see something, and they're just going to be throwing it at you in front of your face. All you got to do is, it's a system that if we throw it in front of your face enough times, you'll buy it.
Yep.
And it's because you don't have the willpower to say that I want to prepare and to provide for my system. I want to provide for my goals. So I have nothing to resist this object that's being thrown in my face.
Right.
I have to have something to resist it with. And if I don't have anything, I'm going to succumb to it too. Yeah, that looks good. Everybody else got one, mine should not.
Right. So it sounds like the most simplistic way of thinking about it. If I have this $10 and like you say, I see an ad come on TV, I'm more likely to go get whatever is the new thing that they're advertising, whether it is, I got $10. You was talking about McDonald's earlier. I'll be like, oh, that looks good. Like maybe I'll try that. There's your $10 instead of the goal that I had set to say I wanted to maybe have enough money saved by the time Black Friday comes up or something like that, right? To buy a new TV, right? That takes away $10 from my pot because I'm just enticed by the McDonald's instead of putting the money to the side or preparing food, right? You're saying have these clear goals set so that you're not easily swayed to get something that is short term for maybe your longer term goal.
And that's what goals is. And that's why it's so important to understand this at the youngest age, is to set it. It doesn't have to be anything big. I mean, just set a goal.
Right.
Set a goal. And what the goal will do is that it will create a commitment. It will create a commitment that will allow you to be able to say, I got to get my goal. It keeps you in mind of what your goal is.
Yeah.
And so you'll see that and you're like, okay, am I willing to compromise my goal for that?
Yeah.
And these are all these choices that we're talking about that are coming at you really quick.
Right. So, okay, we have the idea of the setting the goals, which is critical. Now, is there, would you say that part of those steps to being proactive is also, and I guess this is also kind of wrapped up into a goal, but having a routine of regularly having reoccurring money set aside, like regular reoccurring savings, right? So maybe if you're a kid that gets, your parent pays you for chores, if it's $2 a day for chores or something like that, you expect to have $14 at the end of the week. Maybe it's already set in this reoccurring thing of, okay, if I get $14, I'm saving at least 5 of it, right? Something like that.
Absolutely. I broke these things down, to be honest with you. I'm going to go back into the
I know
finances.
that's part of your program, so I don't want you to get too far into it, because I know that's just what you teach your client, but I'm just trying to get an overall, like, quick steps that may be helpful for people to be proactive in their thought process.
Well, here's the thing, and you just said that, because here's the thing. When you have a goal, you basically do not, without a goal, you can't set a budget.
Mm-hmm.
But savings is just a concept that you can just decide. You can just decide, look, I'm going to put aside. Something that we learn, something you learn in religion and Christianity, is to learn how to tithe.
Mm-hmm.
The benefit of tithing has to do with the sacrifice. You have to be willing to sacrifice and not live in this, like, I have to have instant gratification.
Yeah.
See, that's advertising at its best, is promoting that instant gratification. But when you can begin to sacrifice and begin to say, okay, I don't need this amount, I'm going to save this amount. And that can be arbitrary. You can make that whatever you want. If you want to say, and here's the key, I will say this, the whole is 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Use percentages when you deal with money. Use percentages. Do not use dollar amounts when it comes to percentage. When it comes to money. As it relates to budgeting, I'll give you that in the sense, because don't say I'm going to take $25. Say I'm going to take 10%.
Right.
Because what you do is you get trained on the 10%. And as you grow, that 10% grows.
Right.
You get more money. You get more employment. You get higher pay. That 10% that was still 10%,
right,
has now gone from maybe $10 to $100.
Right.
But it's still just 10%.
Yeah.
When you begin to learn how to live within percentiles of your whole, you begin to see value greater and quicker when it comes to savings and preparing for the goals that you have. Use percentages.
Yeah, that's so good. And I remember seeing something several years ago now when I got very serious about my finances, and they were saying how, breaking up, I think needs fell within generally 50%, 40 to 50% of your paycheck. And then you want your wants category to be within 30%, and your savings and debt should really be taking the 20%. That's left. But half the time it's almost switched, where because we have, like I said, maybe mismanaged our finances previously, it's 50% of our checks going to paying off debts, when we really could have it more to apply to savings, or having it to apply to having the luxury to go towards the wants, the vacations, the whatevers, right?
These are the things that are the benefits of budgeting using percentages.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what we're trying to get to. But you've got to have goals. You've got to have categories in your budget that you understand the value of them.
Yeah.
Okay. You just tell somebody, excuse me?
It's got to mean something to you.
Absolutely. And this is why you just can't tell somebody to set a budget.
Right.
You've got to have goals that mean something in that budget, so that because here's the thing, it's not something that you just set it and forget it.
Yeah. Right.
Budgeting is something that is a constant. You have to be able to maneuver it and be able to manage it every day, every month. It's a mindset.
Right.
It's a tool to get you to your goal. And if you're not conscious of that, a budget is nothing.
Right.
And if you don't maintain it, it's not going to do anything for you.
Right. Oh, man. Oh, listen, I have like so many other questions, but like I said, we might just have to bring you on back another day, Juan, because, I want to be mindful of your time. I want to be mindful of the peace pursuits. And I don't want any of this to get lost in translation because this is some good stuff here. So thank you so much, Juan. I want to end the podcast out. This is something I do with all my guests, which I call rapid value questions. It is 4 questions. There is no right or wrong answer. It is just whatever is the first thing that comes to your mind. So, you ready?
Sure.
Right. First question is, what is one thing that you like to do to sustain or reset your peace?
Sustain or reset my peace?
Yeah.
Stay within my abilities. Maintain my boundaries. It keeps me in my peace.
Yes, that's a good one. Okay. Name one book or song that's helped you to define peace. And it doesn't have to have peace in the title or anything like that. Everyone has their own unique answers for themselves. So one book or song.
Well, it for me, it's wow, you hit me with this one. I'm going to tell you the one that I just recently done, and it's called Love is the Reason. And that's by B.B. Winans.
Oh, okay.
It's Love is the Reason. It really, it really tells me the story because again, my book is called Love Made Simple, the inner peace, contentment, and success. That's love for me.
Yeah, I love it. Now, how do you define peace for yourself now?
I translate success is to having all my needs being met.
Okay.
That's peace. I mean, it's contentment.
Yeah.
It's it's clarity with all my needs met.
Yeah. That's good there. Clarity. Okay, last question. It's a fill in the blank. There's going to be 3 blanks, but the first one is your name. So it should be very easy. Okay. So it says, my name is blank, and without peace, I'd probably be blank, but with peace, I am blank.
My name is Juan Lee, and without peace, I would be devastated. I would be destroyed. I would be useless. I can put many of adjectives in there. I mean, I would be in bad shape.
Yeah.
But with peace, I'm complete.
I love it. Thank you so much, Juan. This was such a good conversation, one that I know could go on for several hours. But again, we just may have to come back for a part 2,
Don't say maybe. Make it a sure.
Yeah, listen, we just got to get you scheduled. That's it. We got to get you scheduled and come back for a part 2. So again, thank you so much for being here, being a part of the Oasis space with the Peace Pursuits community. Really appreciate everything you shared with us today.
Thank you for having me. And by all means, peace is the answer. I mean, It's love and peace is the answer.
Yes, they go so well together. They're like peanut butter and jelly.
Oh, there you go. We're going to bring food in this some kind of way. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Mom.
You're welcome. Have a great one.
You too. Man, oh man, wasn't that a good episode? I told y'all that Juan was coming to bring the heat, okay? Like I said before, we know that money is not everything, but like Juan said, it certainly is a tool to get you the access to your dreams. And I mean, I just really love diving into that conversation. And when Juan said debt ain't new, it's not. It's really nothing new under the sun. We're not seeing anything new as it relates to money and how people can get into debt. But what I'd like to believe is what could potentially be new is how we think about this debt, how we think about our money management, how we think about our behaviors that really drive our money making decisions, because it's so vitally important. The relationship you have with yourself is what is going to dictate how you see yourself, how you're even setting the goals that Juan talked about. It's not just about saying, well, I want to get a new house. It's the behaviors attached to it. It's the feelings attached to it that says, well, why do I want this house? Why do I want the ownership? What does that actually set up for my family? What does that mean long term, right? Whatever the goal is, small or big, it has to have some value. It has to have some meaning. And you have to have a personal relationship with yourself to know what that meaning would be for you personally, right? But he just dropped so many good tips for us and some jewels for us to live by, and very practical, right? I love a good practical message. Don't spend beyond your means. Sometimes it's just as simple as that. Don't spend beyond your means, right? And so I hope you also found this to be valuable. If so, you can find Juan as well at www.juanleetheauthor.com. So you can find out more about his book that he referenced, as well as his programs. And separately, assuming and believing and knowing that you found some value in these conversations, I would ask and love for you all to subscribe, like, review this podcast, and share it with someone. If you found it to be valuable, likely you have someone in your circle that will also find it valuable. And I would say, even if you already know all the tips, like by some chance you already know, or you're a financial guru, there are other people that you could potentially share this information with. I am a firm believer that sharing is caring. So don't just hoard the information for yourself. Please pass it along. Share this episode if you found it to be helpful for you. And also join us in the Facebook community. We have a Facebook community for the Oasis Space Peace Pursuit, where we discuss some of these episodes more in length and depth, and we really get in there and create this safe space to share what's happening with us and have other people hold us accountable. And I think that's important. It's important to have other people that can hold you accountable when you are pursuing peace, because there is going to be conflict that comes at you left and right every day. But if you have other people that are also cheering you on, that are also rooting for you, it makes a huge difference. So also, like I said, definitely feel free to connect with that community. Or if you just have any questions, obviously my information is linked in the show notes. You can reach out to me via email, slide in the DMs, whatever it is. But I'd love to know what were your key takeaways from this episode, and what's one thing that you plan to apply immediately into your life as you start setting those goals in your finances as it relates to having a personal relationship with yourself, right? What does that look like? What does one step look like for you to implement having a better relationship with yourself and your finances? Okay, so that's all for now, folks. Again, thank you so much for joining me here on the ACES Space. I love you so much. Until next time, I want you to live your best life and embody peace without ever compromising your authentic identity. Love and light, y'all.